Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Nairobi Legal Awards In-House Counsel's webinar. It's a pleasure to have all of you here. With me is the panelists and the moderator. We also have council representatives from the Nairobi branch, and we have the members of the Nairobi Legal Awards and the LSK Nairobi branch secretariat. Mine is to welcome you, but that is not really my designation. Instead, I will ask Damari Itemesi, who is the council representative of the in-house practitioners of Nairobi branch, to welcome all of you. And then after that, we'll hand over to Liz Lenjo. We hope to have an interactive, short, and fun session. Thank you so much for being here. And Damari, you can make your welcome remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Damari Itemesi, in-house counsel representative, LSK Nairobi branch. I must say I am honored to be doing the welcoming remarks. I want to humbly welcome all our guests, members, and together with all our guests who availed themselves and who took the opportunity to come and share with us their insights in the various areas of the law. The Law Society of Kenya Nairobi branch, together with the Nairobi Legal Awards Trust, recognizes your presence today, and we are very humbled, and we appreciate all the time that you took to be able to join us, to just interact with the members, and to be able to share your insights on the diverse areas of the law that you guys practice in. So without taking too much time, I would like to hand over the program to the moderator, Liz Lenjo, and to just urge members to feel free to participate, interact, hit the chat section and post as many questions as you can so that we may be able to have an interactive session with our abled guests. And please feel free at the end of the session to just give us your feedback and tell us of whatever other areas of the law you would want us to engage different kinds of panelists or different kinds of moderators. And feel free to give us your feedback so that as a branch, we are able to know what areas we need to improve on and basically plan for future webinars. So without taking too much time, let me hand over the program to Elizabeth Lenjo, who is our moderator for today. So Elizabeth Lenjo, please proceed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my legal brand is Liz, on a light note. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for taking your time out, to the panelists, and to all of us who are attending today. We appreciate the Nairobi Legal Awards Trust, and we appreciate the Nairobi branch, LSK, for such forums and platforms where we get to exchange ideas, have conversations around the legal practice, and basically mentor each other and learn from each other. So we look forward to a very amazing session. Today we'll be talking about embracing legal dynamism in in-house practice. Myself, I'm not an in-house practitioner. However, I run my own consultancy by the name MYIP Legal Studio, and we specialize in intellectual property, entertainment, media, and fashion law, as well as tech law. So without further ado, I will start by just introducing our panelists of the day. And I think it's really important that I read their bio so that you know their backgrounds that they have and the kind of contributions that they're making to this conversation, and even to some extent just walk in their shoes and see how they have been as legal practitioners and even as students, and try and imagine what they have done, what they've been through, and where they are going. So I will start with the company secretary, Dr. Davidson Mwaisaka, who's also an arbitrator, I think associate member, ACIRB, yeah. Dr. Mwaisaka is a certified public secretary and an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. with a doctorate of business administration, DBA, specializing in leadership, corporate governance, and organizational change from USIU Africa. A master's of business administration from on strategic management and finance from Daystar University, a master of laws in commercial and international trade regulation from New York University, a postgraduate diploma in law from KSL, and an LLB first class honors, but do we say, from the University of Nairobi. And he's also an associate chartered arbitrator. Dr. Mwaisaka is a seasoned practitioner and corporate lawyer who began his career 14 years ago as a senior advocate at Kaplan and Stratton and at Oraro and Company Advocates. He went on to become a legal and compliance manager and assistant company secretary at Equatorial Commercial Bank, now Spire Bank, and Equatorial Commercial Bank Insurance Agency Limited, and later a group regional legal manager and group assistant company secretary for British American Investments Company, Kenya Limited, Britam. In 2014, he joined Stanchart Bank Kenya Limited as a country secretary, as a country senior legal counsel, Kenya, and assistant company secretary, and grew up the ranks to become the head of legal and Kenya and East Africa, as a position he holds to date, during his stint in Standard Chartered Bank, he was privileged to do a short stay assignment in Singapore, having worked with group technology legal team in group mergers and acquisitions and corporate team between February 2018 to May 2018. Dr. Mwaisaka has demonstrated thought leadership through his role in the Kenya Bankers Association Legal Committee, being a key member on implementation of the Banking Amendment Act of 2016 on capping interest rates, a member of the Bank Assurance Steering Committee 2014, Business Operation Risk Forum, the People's Forum, Retail Clients Incentive Plan Committee, Customer Experience Group, Outsourcing Committee, and Products Pricing of the bank, as well as the lead coordinator of the Champion of Governance Awards 2014 and 2015, where Stanchart Kenya Limited emerged the overall winner and winner in the financial and investment sector. Dr. Mwaisaka has received several accolades, including an honors Hausa Global Law Scholarship, where he was awarded a full scholarship on the basis of academic merit, University of Nairobi Chancellor's Award, where he was recognized as the best law graduate in 2006, recipient of Wambua Musili Award of Best Civil Procedure Student in his second year, recipient of Gandhi Smarak Nithi Trustees Award, where he was recognized as the best law student 2006, recipient of Shakabren, spelling, excuse my French, Shet Award, where he was recognized as the best second year student, editor of the University of Nairobi Law Journal, vice chairman of the University of Nairobi Student Organization for Law and Diplomacy, and a graduate editor for the Journal of International Law and Politics of the New York University. Wow, I just love this bio. Dr. Mwaisaka enjoys cycling, lawn tennis, swimming, traveling, reading biographies, and doing trainings. He has been involved as a director, as a board member, Technical and Vocational Education and Training Authority, TVETA, board member, University Council, Technical University of Mombasa, and he's also a former board member of the Media Council of Kenya. Today I started with the gentleman. We usually start with ladies first. Today we had to start with the gentleman. Our other two panelists, I will begin with our visitor, Otilia Phiri. She's the lead attorney, emerging markets, Africa, Levant, and Pakistan, Microsoft, and is based in Nairobi, Kenya. Otilia is an in-house legal professional with over a decade experience across Middle East and Africa markets, who enjoys working at the intersection of law and technology. Currently an attorney at Microsoft, leading commercial legal support for the business in Africa, excluding South Africa and Egypt, and Levant and Pakistan. Her roles include engagement with both private and public sector organizations as they navigate the evolving technology regulatory landscape. Prior to joining Microsoft, she worked in various roles in both the technology and infrastructure development space, She served as legal advisor, development project at Nakil, as well as at Samsung Construction and Engineering, working on iconic developments in the region, such as the Palm Jumeirah and Burj Khalifa. She also served in various capacities, including legal counsel, Middle East and Africa at Nokia Corporation during the period leading to the acquisition of Nokia devices and services business by Microsoft Corporation. Otilia holds an LLB from the University of Cape Town, South Africa, a postgraduate diploma in project management from Heriot-Watt University, Dubai campus, and is admitted as a legal practitioner in the High Court of Zimbabwe. Otilia is driven by a passion for people and community engagement. She's an active participant in various industry associations, including Lawyers in Technology, MCHAM in Kenya, and has contributed to work streams in Pan-African organizations such as Smart Africa. Ooh, claps, claps. And finally, last but not least, we have Rahab Magiri Juma. She's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. She has 5 years of experience in ICT industry, spanning from privacy and data protection, public policy and administration, as well as corporate governance and regulatory reform. She has had the privilege of serving as a member on the working group on the development of policy and regulatory framework on privacy and data protection that developed the Data Protection Policy of 2018 and the Data Protection Act number 24 of 2019. She also served as a secretary to the task force on the development of data protection general regulations, which developed the 3 set of data protection regulations, namely the Data Protection General Regulations of 2021, the Data Protection Registration of Data Controllers and Data Processors Regulations 2021, the Data Protection Complaints Handling and Enforcement Procedures Regulations 2021. And these regulations were published and took effect from 15th January 2022. She holds a postgraduate diploma from the Kenya School of Law and a Bachelor's of Law, from University of Nairobi. Ms. Juma is a certified company secretary, and an associate member of the Institute of Certified Secretaries, ICS, and is currently pursuing her LLM in ICT law. Those are very impressive bios. As you can see, I even need to take a drink of water. So in today's session, we will start by the speakers giving us a 10-minute introduction to their journey, how they started. And then after that, we'll have Q&A from myself as the moderator. And then thereafter, we'll have now the Q&A where you will share your questions, your comments, and we shall engage. So I will start with Dr. Mwaisaka. You have the floor. Dr. Mwaisaka? All right, as we wait for Dr. Mwaisaka to join.
Sorry, Liz.
Sorry,
technology is failing me. Trying to
no
put
problem.
on my video. It's not going on. Maybe somebody can assist me with that.
Perhaps we ask the host if there's any restrictions. Could you please check
Sure.
the settings? It's interesting how technology always fails us, and yet it's working normally on other times. There you are.
Not sorry.
Right,
sorry.
the floor. No
sorry,
problem.
That's technology for us. Huh? Yeah, thanks, colleagues, and thank you for making time for the engagement. Really, I think for me, this is an opportunity, really, just to have an interaction amongst ourselves, to get to learn from each one of us. As I say more frequently, I think we are part of a very unique profession. Yeah, as lawyers, we have various paths that we can take as colleagues, really, and most importantly, it's just an opportunity for each one of us to identify what will make them really enjoy the profession, enjoy their legal practice. The legal practice really for each one of us is a unique one. We can have an opportunity to be in the public service. We can have an opportunity to be in the corporate world as in-house counsel. We can practice in the NGO world. Yeah, we can practice with the live litigation practice, for example, dispute resolution, etc. Yeah, be it corporate commercial law, IP, etc. So we are part of this very privileged, I must say, profession. And for each one of us, what is most important is really to identify. Yeah, we each have our strengths. We each have areas that we fancy being in. And as I always remind myself, we'll want to be in a specialized area or an area where you are happy, where you feel satisfied, where you feel happy and you enjoy that specific field. I must say, really, in our profession, we can't say that there is one area of field that is more superior to another, be it the bar, be it the bench, be it in-house counsel, be it practice out there in the NGO world, be it in governance, etc. All these are opportunities that each one of us are endowed differently, and we each enjoy it. Yeah, specific areas. So maybe just a background myself. I'm Davidson Mwaisaka. I'm married with one wife. I must say I got married quite early in life. I think got married as early as 26, 27 and settled down. So that's me. So it's myself and my wife. We've been married for the last almost 11 years now. Yeah, and enjoying the journey through marriage. Maybe just to give a background, finished high school. That was 2001 at Alliance. Yeah, got this privilege to join University of Nairobi to pursue law. That has always been my passion. I don't know, I have always felt that I can be a person who can bring justice. I can be able to bring opportunities for all in different experiences and be fair and have a free and fair society. So that passion was in me. I think it was embedded in my campus days through career talks, etc. And that brings to me the realization that in our profession we have individuals that have gone ahead of us. Yeah, and one very critical aspect is for each one of us to be able to identify, certain individuals who have been in this path before, who have trodden the path and have been able to experience and get to know what the legal practice is all about, and to get the small neat bits of how being a lawyer is, etc. So University of Nairobi, getting in 2002 and started my LLB journey. It took me 4 years, 2006, I graduated. In between the journey, I think one very memorable career talk that sticks with me to date is one that was done by the late Senator Otilia Kilonzo. So he came, then I was a second year student, and he talked about the legal profession and how we should really strive for excellence, how we should really be passionate about the law, and really be very keen in identifying our strengths, identifying our weaknesses, and seeing how we'll fit into this legal field jigsaw. That remained with me. I think he was a very close mentor, and I started the journey with him in the second year of campus. Yeah, and that was it, graduated and joined Kaplan & Stratton, where I did my pupillage. So was in Kaplan, did my pupillage, and I thank God, was fortunate enough, got a scholarship, and I went to NYU to undertake my master's in law. That took a year, and back in 2009. After that, I think there was the LSK, Kenya School of Law transition. I think we were the second lot to go to Karen. Yeah, and for us, we call ourselves BOMAS. BOMAS LSK, BOMAS Kenya School of Law students. I think by then, the law school in Karen was still either under construction or the process was being taken. So once I remember, our classes were actually done in the BOMAS hall, where the elections process is usually carried. Yeah, passed the by exams, got admitted. So I remember at the time of admission, I was in New York, took a week. That was in September 2008, took a week off, flew to Nairobi, was admitted, and went back to finalize my LLM. Came back to Nairobi, that was 2009, May. You remember that time I'd already resigned from Kaplan, back to Nairobi, and I asked myself really, what would I want to do with myself? Lots of pressure, chief, you're a good student, become a lecturer, teach the law, and pursue with your PhD. I think that's what you're cut for. Yeah, but I think for me, I believe in my gut feel. Really, I think teaching for me will be more of a side hustle. I think it's not a vocation that I really would have fancied to be in and do full time. Yeah, so listen to my gut, and I was back on the tarmac and applied to law firms to get in and start the legal practice. So I think the lesson that I picked from that experience is listen to yourself. You are unique, you are special in your own capacity, you are special in yourself, and do what will make you happy, do what you will really wake up tomorrow and you are really excited and happy to do. Yeah, so for me, I said, let me try practice, and fortunate enough, got into Oraro and Company. Yeah, so started in basically as a first year associate, doing everything. You're doing the court work, yeah. You're in the commercial corporate world, practice. You're also in the conveyancing, etc. And I think that's also a good opportunity for the younger lawyers to now try to identify your niche. What are your strengths? What will you really fancy doing? What will make you happy? Yeah. With my 3-year journey at Oraro, ended up specializing in corporate commercial law. So basically conveyancing, corporate commercial transactions. I remember undertaking different mergers, acquisitions, etc. Conveyancing work, the bread and butter, maybe for law firms, quite quick in terms of generating income, etc. Yeah, once in a while in court and doing commercial litigation, etc. So after 3 years, I asked myself, what is this Master's in Business Administration? I hear everyone saying MBA, MBA, MBA. And maybe a lesson out of my journey is the ability to be inquisitive, to be open-minded, yeah, and to try something new. So I told myself, why not? Oraro and Company, we're in Upper Hill, Daystar University is just next here, next to the mortuary roundabout there. Why not? Let me enroll to an MBA class and get to understand what is this whole MBA about. I'm a lawyer, it's just all about the law. What is this business aspect that everyone goes to class for? And I must say it was a very rewarding experience, going to class as a Gumbaru student. Then, yeah, starting out, their semesters, maybe fees will not be there. That semester, you defer or take less classes. Just with patience, slowly, it took me 3 years. I finished my MBA. Once I finished my MBA, I asked myself, I think it will be very good for me to get into a corporate setting. yes, I understand the law. I continue learning about the law, but how will it feel being in a corporate setting, understanding a corporate strategy, a business, and myself as an in-house counsel to try and add value to that organization? Yeah, let me see how that goes. Maybe it's something that I will fancy and enjoy. So I made the decision, let me try corporate world. Threw my CVs out there. I must say was a very interesting process because all the interviews I'll go, they'll say, hey, Davidson, you have quite a good CV, yeah, but where is the experience? You've never been in a corporate world setting before. You've just been a practicing lawyer. And yeah, so maybe this is not an opportunity for you. But I never gave up. And maybe one other lesson. In life, I think it always calls for persistence. It always calls for you knocking doors. Yeah. The worst that you'll be told is, sorry, you don't have an opportunity. Yeah. But I'm a firm believer that with consistency and persistence, yeah, a door will open. So I was lucky enough, fortunate, I think God's blessing, I was able to get an opportunity at Equatorial Commercial Bank, now Spire Bank. So that's where I started off my in-house practice. Got in the bank, fully charged lawyer, but I must say wanting to some extent in terms of never been in a business setting before. This is banking, one of the most heavily regulated industry in the financial, as part of the financial services sector. You have the prudential guidelines, myriad of regulators, etc. Yeah, but fortunate enough, hand-holding with my former boss, I was able to get my footing and was able to understand this banking world, what it's all about, what is a business strategy, yeah, what will be required of me as a corporate in-house counsel. And in the process, really just also got interested with company secretarial work, went back to a college in town. It was in Moy Avenue, started my CPS classes. Within no time, I had my CPSK with me. Few years at Equatorial, I think it was 1.5. And I said, well, also got an opportunity at Britain. So that was my next opportunity. So at Britain, I was a legal manager. Britain was then growing, quite an interesting environment. Yeah. Then we were doing acquisitions in Tanzania, getting a footprint in Southern Sudan, getting a footprint in Rwanda, Mozambique. So as part of that very interesting journey where Britain is currently. I also undertook the COSEC work and really got into another different environment with the insurance in the insurance sector, understanding asset management, business, yeah, property management, etc. So that also continued to build up my career journey. Yeah, post Britain, 2000, I think 14, April, joined Standard Chartered. So Standard Chartered has been my employer since then. I think 8 years now. And the experience has been immense. I think it's always an opportunity for us as in-house counsel to be able to interact with colleagues out there, our fellow colleagues in the practice world, yeah, our colleagues also who continue to work with our regulators. And most importantly, is just an opportunity for us to understand our business, to understand the strategy, yeah, and ask ourselves, where will we plug in as lawyers, in-house counsel, and actually give solutions and be able to burn this engine and have all the pistons firing so that our employer can be able, one, to make a good, decent earning at the end of the day, in business, yeah, and also we ensure that as a business, we remain in the street and narrow way, yeah, that is set out by our regulators, etc. So that's my story. fortunate enough to be where I am. And I thank God. I really say that we all have different paths. We are all unique in our selves. Yeah. Most importantly, just identify where are you good at. Yeah. Put your mind to it. Strive and do your best. Get to excellence. Yeah. And doors and opportunities will open at the end of the day. It's all about putting your mind to it, being a hard worker. And I think one of the most important things is to ensure that one, you let go of certainty. At the end of the day, it's an opportunity to be curious, to be willing to embrace paradox. Life is a paradox. It's never a straight jacket. You never know what lies ahead. Yeah, but with you being able to let go of that certainty, be strong and believe in yourself. And I must say, challenges will always be there, one way or another. But make sure that you savor every moment. Yeah, even in difficult ones, it's a matter of time. Yeah, it all goes so fast so that you can be able to move to your next step. So thanks, Liz. That's Davidson for you, and happy to be here to engage with colleagues. And really, for me, most importantly, is to learn from each one of us so that we can make ourselves better persons. Many thanks. Thanks.
Thank you. So before I introduce our next speaker, I think I just enjoyed hearing, first of all, seeing your love for books and your curiosity, and we know how the saying goes, that curiosity killed the cat. I think in your instance, it's the cat who made the killing. So kudos to you. Our next speaker is Ms. Rahab Juma from the ODPC, a legal officer. Rahab, you have the floor.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, everybody, for this opportunity. I think going after David, that's quite an interesting journey that you've been on, and I'm also here to learn from you. I think it's quite interesting to see the path that you have taken. So for me, Rahab, I joined university a while back, 2011, UON. Was law my first choice? No, it wasn't. But for me, fortunately, I had the privilege of taking some time off after secondary school just to maybe think about what I wanted to do, which course I was interested in pursuing in. Initially, my first point of call, I wanted to be an architect. Because I still do have a love of design and interesting spaces. When it comes to interior design, that's part of my passion. Unfortunately, I didn't meet the cut mark to be able to join the School of Architecture. So my parents asked me, take some time just to think about what you want to do and think about it in the long term. Because it's a huge commitment that you might be making. So sat down and thought about what my key passions were. And I decided, let me do law. I'm passionate about human rights. I'm passionate about the aspect of human dignity. So I thought that's something I can focus once I'm done with a degree. And given the range of scope in terms of, I could either go to practice, I could become a public official or a public servant, or I could work in the NGO space. Ideally, when I started out in law school, I genuinely thought I'd end up with the public in the NGO space, in the community-based organization space. Because when I grew up, the most impact I saw from my community was from community-based organization. University was an interesting experience for me, I'll say that. I don't think I was, when it comes to being a student, I don't think I had the same commitment Davidson had on his end, especially in second year, but I got to make amazing friendships that have lasted till today, till where I am. Actually, we have a group of friends that we met in first year, and we've still managed to remain great friends till this date. So I graduated in 20 2014. But luckily for me, I think around third year, fourth year, I got the hang of things and decided to be serious. I remember there's a phrase we used to say when we were in fourth year. And I can see some of my classmates here. Damaris is one of them. It was, we used to call it, we are acquiring our grades now, because we really wanted to graduate, and we wanted to graduate with a good grade. So I think from fourth year, most of us got the hang of things, and you'd find most of us in the library trying to acquire our grades. So I was fortunate enough to have secured an employment opportunity even before I left campus. And I think the benefit of this is because I was doing my law degree concurrently with my CPS studies. So by the time I was finishing my CPS studies, I was also completing my law degree at the same time. So an opportunity came up, and I was called for an interview, and I was able to secure a position in a leading CPS firm. And then when time came for me to join Kenya School of Government, I had to make a decision. I was in a firm, I was earning a pretty decent salary, but for me to be able to put KSL, I needed to say bye-bye to that opportunity and focus on my education. So I think what helped me is that I had the benefit of having the conversation with the managing partner then. And she encouraged me to lean towards my education because the end goal was for me to be an advocate at the end of the day, because the conversation we had was around, so what do you want? What is it that you want to pursue at the end of the day? Would you be happy by merely saying you're just a lawyer and a CPS, you have this opportunity, or are you ready and willing to allow yourself the opportunity to grow and see what the future holds? She told me once I was done with my KSL studies, if I was still interested, I could come back. There'd always be a place for me. I think that gave me the comfort in pursuing my KSL education. After KSL, my journey when it came to pupillage was quite difficult, because I'd like to say I'm among the few people I know who struggled to get a placement for my pupillage. But fortunately, after a few tries here and there, after leveraging on the contacts that I had, I was able to secure a position in a law firm. And then when I was at the law firm, and maybe I'll just take you back to university, one of the courses we did in undergraduate was ICT and the law. And our lecturer then was Mr. Stephen Kiptines. I think now he's been appointed to head a specific department at Safaricom. I approached him because I think I garnered a lot of interest in that area, appreciating how technologies work, appreciating frequency as a resource, and all of those things. I'd like to say I've been a geek from a specific point in life. I've always been interested in computers, technology, how innovative solutions work, because they're solution oriented. They are focusing on a specific problem. So I approached him and I told him I was interested to maybe have an internship opportunity at the Communications Authority of Kenya. He stated that he used to work there, and if anybody would be interested in having an internship opportunity at the Communications Authority of Kenya, you could reach out to him, could put in a good word for you, a recommendation to the director, legal services at the Communications Authority. So I approached, said, if any opportunity arises, please let me know. I gave him my CV. He told me he'd put in a good word. So fortunately, I is that about 3-4 years later, I finally got the opportunity from the Communications Authority of Kenya. So they called me when I was still doing my pupillage. I told them, unfortunately, I'll not be able to join, but if they could hold on to that opportunity, immediately I finished my pupillage, I'm more than ready and willing to come and work for them. So once I finished my pupillage, I had the opportunity to come and work at the Communications Authority. I started off as an intern. And I think that's the thing with public service. When you come in, you have to start at the bottom. And there's a benefit to that, because once you're doing the grant work, once you're the KYM of a particular organization, you end up doing everything. And that's the most effective and efficient way to learn. So when I was doing my pupillage, I had the privilege of meeting Mrs. Mercy Wandrao. She was the assistant director. She was working on a specific project. It was the data protection framework. She had been appointed by the CS, Joe Musharu, to head a working group that would look into coming up with a regulatory framework. She actually did put in the request at a departmental meeting. And I said, I mean, what's the harm? I'm literally doing everything. Let me just add on more work for me to do. And I saw it as a learning opportunity. And I think for me, that's where my interaction and my interest with data protection started. So I'd say the learning point from that, don't be afraid to present yourself for opportunities that are brought along your way. So we got to work with a very interesting team of diverse people. We got to work with engineers, cybersecurity experts, privacy practitioners. The amount of knowledge and experience that I garnered from working with her, I don't think I would have garnered it if I went to a classroom. Because you see, it provided me with a platform to learn from people who've been here before, from people who understand the legislative development process, from stakeholders, and the public participation process also exposes you to various stakeholders who up to date I still have in my contact list, because I know should I need any opportunity or should I need assistance with a specific aspect, these are people I can reach out to based on the relationships that we formed during that particular exercise of being a member of that working group. And then fast forward to 2020, another opportunity came by, and I think it's based on the experience that I have had working with, again, the people you work with, I generally say, create a decent working environment, a favorable working environment. Yes, you might clash on specific aspects, but I think so long as the relationship remains respectful, so long as the working relationship remains cordial, once an opportunity comes by and the work ethic has, you've been able to prove your work ethic, they'd be more than ready and willing to recommend you for that opportunity. So in 2020, she's appointed the chairperson of a task force, the COVID-19 ICT task force. And the mandate of the task force was to review ICT solutions to actually help us combat the pandemic as a government. She recommended me for the position of the secretariat, and based on that, I got more exposure and more experience, and I got to interact with people from the innovative space now, the innovators, the techies, people in policy spaces, not only in Kenya, but also in international organizations. And then in 2021, when the Data Protection Commissioner was appointed, we had the benefit of sitting down with her just to explain to her what the process was around development of the Act. And based on that experience that we were bringing on board, she actually did take us on as part of the task force that would come up with the regulations. And I was actually appointed as a secretary. So I think that whole journey, I think for me now came with a natural transition from Communications Authority of Kenya to when the Data Commissioner was setting up the office. For me, the transition was just natural because there's the benefit you have when you're coming not only with a particular skill set, but also the institutional history. You understand where this process began. You also have the responsibility of carrying what goals were the development process of these policy frameworks and the Act, and also now you've given now the responsibility, go ahead and implement. So I think for me, the transition was natural from Communications Authority now to the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. Just to echo what Davidson has said, this is not without its challenges. There'll be extremely good days when the outcome of an activity that has taken a year, 2 years in development is successful and you get the go ahead, and even the feedback that you receive from the general public is a good one, but there'll also be bad days. I think I like this quote that my mom likes saying at the end of every day, even this too shall pass. So if it's a bad moment, just know it's not meant to last forever. Even this too shall pass. And also you need to be cautious about the good moments. In as much as you enjoy and revel in them, note that also this too shall pass. So you use that to keep motivating you and to keep pushing you forward. Secondly, if opportunities present themselves, don't shy away from recommending yourself for that opportunity. It really doesn't matter whether you have a skill set or not. If you genuinely believe you're capable of performing the task at hand, I would say go for it. Don't shy away from any opportunities. If you genuinely believe that you're capable of doing it, recommend yourself for that particular opportunity. And then don't be afraid to reach out to people who you look up to. If you want a mentor, if you want to reach out to Otilia here as a member, go on LinkedIn, just send her a message, reach out, tell her I'm interested in what you're doing. Is it possible for us to have a conversation? What I have found on my end is people are more than willing to help you. I have interacted with people across board from both public sector, private sector, community-based organization. People are more than ready and willing to help you. I think the general nature of human beings is we tend to assume people would be selfish, but my interaction has been different. I have found that most people are more than kind and willing to guide your way. And lastly, you need to have mentors in this space. You need to have someone who will guide you in this process when it comes to the difficult days and when you're having a challenge in deciding which path to take or which route to take. Mentors have been extremely helpful when it comes to making some of these decisions on my end. So yeah, that's all from me.
Thank you, Rahab. I like how curiosity is the theme so far. I'm looking forward to Otilia's story now. But I think these two shall pass. I think it's really important. I think it's what always fuels us to keep going. And I think that's one of my greatest take homes from your experience. So I'll now invite Otilia to share with us her experience, her journey. We look forward to just hearing about your fabulous life.
Not so fabulous, actually. It's as Rahab was winding down and speaking about how sometimes things don't go the way that you like, I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty much like my career. And so sometimes what looks on the outside like success, how the sausage is made is not always so easy. So I'll start my story on the why I picked a career in law. It's cliche, but when I was 16, I was in the debate club, debate and Toastmasters, actually. I was the chair lady for our Toastmasters, and the teacher who used to be our executive sponsor for the clubs walked past one day when I was prepping for one of our debate sessions, and she's like, you'd make a good lawyer one day. And I thought, actually, maybe. I never up to that time actually even had a consideration of what I would want to do after high school. And so she planted the seed in my head that I kind of ran with. And so the next year when I was applying for varsity, that's all I applied for. I only applied for law. I applied to 2 universities. I was accepted by both and opted to go to University of Cape Town because my best friend went there. That's just how fickle I am. And so I studied law from 2003 to 2006. I graduated in 2006. Probably one of the best takeaways from doing the LLB is I love the way that it's such a varied degree. It's teaching you really the foundations of the law in different areas, and the more explorative you are as well with the optional subjects that you get to take, the more you can color what that degree looks like. And so I like to think it's a degree that taught me to think. It helped me understand the law and the foundations, but it also taught me how to think. So that was my takeaway from university. When I finished, I went in to do an internship with what was called Parliamentary Monitoring Group. It's a group, it's an NGO in South Africa that monitors Parliament. You can imagine how interesting Parliament is in South Africa. It wasn't that interesting at the time though, because Julius Malema, I guess, had not yet ascended to where he is. And so I missed out on what would have been very interesting if I'd continued in that path. But essentially that role was sitting and writing minutes in Parliament, essentially, to record the decisions that were being made. It was a way to provide transparency to the public on what happened within Parliament. It was a great internship, but soon my mother was like, I didn't send you to university, pay all the school fees so that you could intern and not be able to take care of yourself. And so she was like, you need to find a more viable path. And she suggested I try out Dubai. At the time, my aunt, who worked for Standard Chartered, as in, the coincidence, Davidson, and she had moved to Dubai in a transfer and had taken her family with, and my cousins were about the same age as I am, and they had then, also graduated and started out working in Dubai. And so she was like, well, look, your cousins seem to be figuring it out. why not go and try? So I left Cape Town with my one little suitcase, my degree from UCT, and that's all I had, and spent probably 3 months knocking on any door that ever was, trying to find an opportunity. And I was quite blessed in many ways that there was a recruiter from Michael Page, the recruitment agency, who I bugged him until he eventually said, I'll sit down and have a coffee with you. And we had a coffee. His name was Nabil. He was a great guy. And I think just getting to meet in person, also tell him my story, something about that resonated for him. And so he took it upon himself to push my CV. And I eventually landed my first role at Nikhil. And actually, at the time I had my visit visa was lapsing, because I think you used to get 60 days and you could extend for further 30 days. The day I got the offer from Nikhil, I was at Emirates booking my flight back. And so I'll never forget that day, because it was my first real job. It was a great offer. You can imagine in a market like that. But I always like to say that I'm not even sure what they were hiring me for, because I didn't really have much to offer apart from my legal degree and the ability to think. And so I landed up at Nikhil. Great job, like I'm saying, it felt great. In some ways owned by the government of Dubai, and they were doing very cool projects, including the Palm Jumeirah, which Liz mentioned earlier. And so I spent a great year working with them. And then it was 2008. And if you remember, that's, as in for those who are that old, that's when the recession hit. So Lehman Brothers, everything came crushing, and the construction industry in the UAE was predominantly built on leverage money. And so there was a ripple effect, and a lot of jobs were lost during that time. And I was one of those lucky people that lost their jobs. I was made redundant in my first job after only a year of working in the job. That lesson for me was, it's not personal sometimes, you know, it really is just business, and businesses need to kind of do what's best for them to continue operating, but also it's not the end of the world. So when I was made redundant, much like Rahab, I had these dreams that I wanted to be a human rights lawyer. I wanted to do, you know, practice law in ways that can help impact and advance human rights for others. And so I applied to the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow to do a master's in human rights, and got accepted, and I was on my way. And then one of my old colleagues from Nikhil called me and he's like, oh, actually, I have a friend at Samsung who's looking for, you know, someone to support him. He's the director of legal and contract. He's kind of handling everything on his own currently. And so if you're interested, I'll connect you and, you know, go in for an interview and see if you're interested, you know, if it might be something for you. And I thought, yeah, well, what's there to lose, right? I went in, interviewed, his name was John Allen Gibson. And yeah, suffice to say, I've never done a master's in human rights. So you know that I never went to Scotland. The interview went great. He offered me the job on the spot and said if I was open to start on the following working day, I could. And so I did. The lesson in that one, I think, was the way you show up when you're working with people is a great testament to you sometimes, and can be something that's of reference to you even in rooms where you're not. And I'll never forget Muhammad Ibrahim for being a plug for me to his good friend, who then, you know, that ended up as an opportunity for me. And so I ended up at Samsung Construction Engineering. Those were some of my best years. Two things came out of that. I think the first was because I got to work hand in hand with a very good lawyer. I got to learn a lot about construction law and just how transactions work within the construction space. He actually had a very good deal. He would work 7 months of the year and he was off 5 months of the year. So for 5 months of the year, I was unsupervised, which also meant then I got to lead on some of these transactions at quite a young age, to be fair. And so it was, I'd like to think of that as my training days. But the other thing that came out from that is that he advised me, he said, look, you can't keep up like this without getting formally registered as a legal practitioner or an advocate or a lawyer in any jurisdiction, right? It's something that really gives you the credibility as a lawyer. And so he strongly suggested, and on his guidance, I took up conversions exams in my home country that are the route for you to get registered as a legal practitioner, and eventually did so. And so that was the learning from that part of the journey. Fast forward, probably almost 4 years into my role at Samsung, I started to feel as though there wasn't really an opportunity for growth. It was a great place to work. I had great relationships, but I just didn't feel like I was growing. And so I started to look out in the market, and someone called me once, and they were calling on behalf of Nokia. I think they assumed I worked for Samsung Electronics, although I was working for Samsung Construction. And they're like, well, Nokia is looking for legal specialists. This is something of interest. And I said, yeah, sure. I mean, listen, I'm looking for an opportunity. I went in for the interview, and it was interesting because it was at a time where things were going quite badly for Nokia. I'm sure if I do a poll on here, there's probably less than 5% of the people here have a Nokia phone today. And things were kind of spiraling really detrimentally for Nokia. And so it didn't seem like a great place to move to, right? As in moving from a very comfortable place as an situation that I had at Samsung and taking this risk of moving to a company that was in distress. But when I interviewed, everyone I interviewed with just seemed to be such a nice person. It just seemed like the type of company that has an exceptional culture. And so I took the risk, and I was like, well, look, if it's only for a couple of years and things, don't pan out well, I will just move and find something else to do. And so I took the risk. And I actually remember one of the VPs at Samsung, when I put in my resignation, was like, look, you can come back because this doesn't seem like a good idea where you're going. But in any case, I took the role at Nokia, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. Sometimes things that are packaged not so beautifully can end up being very interesting opportunities for you. So I moved to Nokia in 2012. And in 2013, Microsoft announced that they would procure Nokia's devices and services business. And so first we all went into panic because there was the fear around what the implications of that would be for us. But that was some of the most interesting work that I got to do. Preparing a company for an acquisition, particularly where we were carving out a portion of the business, and that's the business that I would be going with, and then landing in a completely different company and then trying to help that business adapt, so to speak, to the policies, procedures in a different organization is some of the greatest learning experiences that I've ever had. And so 2014, April, when the acquisition closed, I landed at Microsoft, and I've been there since. I had the opportunity to make the choice to leave, as in everyone was given the choice of, do you actually want to stay with the acquisition or go? But I chose to stay, and I don't regret it. And in some ways, I'm quite lucky that the following year they announced that Satya would become the CEO for Microsoft, because he changed the culture of Microsoft, and has really changed the trajectory that Microsoft has gone on. In the early years, it was difficult. When we first landed, I felt like the culture was not a fit for where I was coming from. I struggled understanding the type of business they were doing. We had essentially been selling and distributing phones. And then I went into this technology company that does so much more. I finally learned what software and was at the time, and how licensing worked for them. And it was quite complex, but it was interesting. And when I started out, I was a consumer and devices lawyer. So I predominantly focused around their consumer and devices business within Microsoft. And then I was very keen to learn what a traditional commercial lawyer did in Microsoft, the ones who support the software business and the cloud business today. And so I reached out to colleagues within the team, and a lady, Jerry Olweni, actually she was based out of Kenya at the time, and she was the counsel for East and Southern Africa markets, offered that I could shadow her. And so I spent a couple of weeks in between the years, probably 2016 and 2017, coming to visit Kenya and seeing just, the work that she was doing. And then she was fortunate to get an offer to transfer to California within Microsoft, and she now leads their team there in Western region. And when she moved out, the opportunity to move to Kenya came up. And so I moved to Kenya as counsel for East and Southern Africa markets, which had been the role that she had held in the past. And that's a lesson as well from that one is, there's various ways for you to create opportunities for yourself just by offering, as in the willingness to learn. And then on the other end, the graciousness of people to offer their time to help you was probably a gift at that time. And the ability to shadow Jerry, and today she continues to be a mentor for me, is really a gift. And I couldn't stress enough the importance of that. And yes, so I landed in Kenya as counsel for East and Southern Africa markets in 2018, and my role has changed over time. I'm now predominantly supporting the continent. It was minus South Africa, as Liz was saying earlier, but my colleague is going on maternity leave, so I'll actually be picking up the work in South Africa for the coming 6 months as well. So it's kind of full circle for me who studied there. And so, that's a little bit of a high-level overview of my tumultuous journey. Not so straightforward, not always so easy, but like both Dr. Davidson and Rahab have said before, this thirst for continuous learning, that curiosity really is something that has been instrumental. I always say, if there's an opportunity, put your hand up. The number of projects that I've offered to support on that had nothing to do with legal work have been some of the things that helped me build a great network of people who then sometimes create other opportunities for me. And have fun. As in, at the end of the day, right, we spend our days doing this, and so it shouldn't be drudgery. As in, I like to have fun in my work. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Another common theme that is cutting across is just the value of people and how the relationships that we make are really fundamental in our career trajectories. I don't think any lawyer here has had a smooth journey when it comes to their legal practice or their legal, journey. But I think it's always important that we share our stories, because I'm sure someone here today can relate with something that you have been through, something that you've tried, something you have faced. So I think that's really awesome. So we'll move to the second phase of this session, and I will request my panelists to try and be as concise as possible with the answers, so that then we can share a lot more information and insights with our participants. So my first question will go to Dr. Mwaisaka and Otilia, because you've had the pleasure of working with people outside your home countries where you grew up. You are now finding yourselves interacting a lot with other lawyers and other, societies, people or of all kinds of, work and culture. How has that been for you? What are some of the important traits that a lawyer should have to be able to adapt easily? And as you answer that question, also you may share or tackle how maybe even technology has influenced that in terms of making yourself being more adaptable in some of these situations. So I'll start with Dr. Mwaisaka.
Thanks, Liz. I think an excellent question. I think for SEB, I think it's more of a multicultural institution, global. I think we are the only bank in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, Americas, and quite a diverse spectacle of colleagues that we work with. How have I been able to interact with colleagues, this cross-cultural, diverse organization? What are some of the items that I can really say will make you a good colleague? Will make you an individual that you can be able to interact with others. As you know, really, we are not an island, and we rely and depend on others so that we can be able to work with others. More so in a corporate setting, you really have to identify the different stakeholders and ensure that you work with them well. So I think one most important thing is the more you know about yourself, the more power you have to be better. Humility is usually very much underrated across the board, and we have infinite capacity of self-deception, and we usually have countless unconscious ways that we strive to cover ourselves, protect ourselves, either from pain, from uncertainty, or from responsibility, etc. And more often or not, we'll do that to the expense of others, yeah, and to our benefit. So at the end of the day, I think one key trait that we should learn more of as colleagues, as individuals out there in practice, as we continue interacting, be it with our clients out there, our colleagues in a corporate setting, is the deepening of our self-awareness and being able to know ourselves and being humble, being really vulnerable and listening to others, getting feedback, etc. That is one very unique trait that if we can be able to harness as colleagues in whatever way, as much as possible, we should be able to build relations, build our networks out there, and really, at the end of the day, be able to be the best colleague out there, be the best person out there. The other item, really, I think, is the ability to do the right thing, because it's the right thing you have to do, yeah? And don't do the right thing at the expense of anything in return. Always our mantra should be, and really what I've continued to pick up, our values, yeah, and really your most valuable possession is your name. You can never trade your name for anything, yeah, and that is one thing that one can never take away from you. So in each and every interaction, how do we ensure that we do the right thing, yeah? And doing the right thing might not always mean that you get what you want or what you think you should want, but it will always be a scenario where it's win-win for each party, and they ensure that really by you doing the right thing, you feel better about yourself, and in the long run, your conscience remains clear. So that is also one thing that I've really learned as I continue to interact with different colleagues from different parts of the world, of the continent, different cultures, etc. Yeah, bringing in technology. How can we, as lawyers, be it in the in-house counsel, or rather as in-house counsel or as practicing lawyers out there, how can we embrace technology? Really, I think from the COVID experience, we've learned that technology is very key, and without technology, really, at the end of the day, we will not be able to achieve as much as we do achieve. Maybe I can take one very important aspect. How can we use technology as colleagues out there, be it in the industry, be it in the corporate world, to ensure that we embrace technology so that it can be able to build a pattern of life, a way of life? What do I mean? How can we use technology so that we make ourselves more productive, we make ourselves more structured, we make ourselves more relevant at the end of the day? Yeah. We are different individuals, different working patterns, etc. There are those who are morning persons who do things in the morning. There are those who do things later in the afternoon or are more productive in the afternoon. There are those who are more productive at night. How can we embrace this technology so that, one, we have our diaries well managed, yeah, use technology either to have your meetings. So for example, for the last 2 years, as a bank, we've predominantly been working from home, yeah, but you continue having your meeting across the board. You continue having your approvals through the systems, etc. Yeah, as a bank, we have a case management a database system that we use for management of our cases, for our contracting space, etc. So technology has really come in to make our lives better as lawyers, as colleagues. And maybe the 1 or 2 hours that you'll have been using to commute out there to rush to the office or to rush to this meeting or the other. How can we use that so as to make ourselves better colleagues, more informed, get better expertise out there? There are very many online courses. Yeah. So for example, degrees are now being offered online. Yeah, most of the universities, etc. So I think it's a ripe time that we have, and an excellent opportunity for us being here at this point in time. You can have that degree within 2 or 3 years. Maybe you've been thinking of getting a master's. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. The 1 or 2 hours maybe that you will have been using for commuting, enroll for that course, do it online, for example, etc. Yeah, so technology has really come in to ensure that things are done more efficiently. We can do things more stress-free. Yeah, court session we've now embraced filing of our documents online, etc. That really makes efficiencies come through. Yeah, so maybe that would be my response, Lee, to your great question. Thanks.
Thank you. Over to you, Otilia.
Thank you. On the learning around culture and interacting with people from different cultures, I'll probably say one of the biggest takeaways for me is that we're different, but at the core of it, there's a connectedness to our humanity. And there's just certain things that resonates with everyone. Respect is something that resonates with everyone. Building community or connections with people is something that resonates with anyone. Integrity, accountability, those are things that resonate with anyone. And so the one thing that I've really found is that there are common values that you can find regardless of who you're interacting with across the world. And so just being grounded in some common basic values or principles will serve you well whoever you interact with. And I think it's quite similar in some ways as well to what Davidson was speaking to earlier. The other thing that I learned is that having a curiosity for other people's culture or how they do things is also important. I think you come from where you come from, you only know what you know, right? And some of the patterns you built are, yes, might be great, but they're just built on limited knowledge, to be fair. And others have been doing what you're doing and doing it in different ways. And there's always something to learn. So I think having a curiosity for how other people do things and introducing difference of perspectives, I used to describe it as the feeling of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And putting yourselves in those spaces where you don't have to be the one who knows it, and it's okay to try to do things differently than you would ordinarily do. And then maybe on the aspect around technology and its impact, obviously, I mean, it's for us as a company like Microsoft, this is the thing that is also helping us scale, right? So we're on the end where we're actually providing the tools that can help people really be more productive. And we saw that particularly during COVID, same as Dr. Davidson has said, that the move to working virtually or hybrid for many people has really it's completely changed, I think, in many ways, how we do our work, the things that we're able to do as well. I think one of the things I think, at least from a legal practice, if I think of how that has changed what we do, there's a lot of work that we're doing currently as a department to automate certain processes. And it's been a very big culture shift. I mean, you can talk about leveraging tools like Teams or Zoom or email, things like that. I think everyone is comfortable with those tools. But I think when you start speaking about are there legal processes that you can automate that can then free up your time so that you're focused mostly on the most strategic work for the company, I think that has been probably the most powerful shift for us and a culture change as well from a legal perspective.
Thank you. And then I'll flip the question a little bit for Rahab. One, basically, again, for you, some of the traits that have helped you, navigate the government system and being an employee in government entities, one. And then secondly, as far as how technology now affects the legal practice in the eyes of the Data Protection Act, are we also going on to be construed as data processors and controllers? Because remember, as practitioners as well, we have a lot of access in terms of information. We know our clients' names, ID, family, we could write a book on some of our clients. So, answer the first question, and then we look forward to the answer in the second question.
So on the first question, what traits have helped me navigate being a public servant? First of all, I'd like to say before you join government, you have to understand the why. You cannot come into government without understanding the why. If you find yourself there by chance, it's very important that you figure out your why as quickly as possible, because it can end up to be a very frustrating process. I think for me, the first conversations I had when I was joining public sector was, why do you want to be here? So it forced me to have a conversation with myself at the end of the day. What was it all about? And I'll just echo what Otilia has said. She talked about impact. And I think that for me was the why. I wanted to be impactful in that, coming up with policies or solutions that would serve the citizens at the end of the day. I believe if we're impactful at the point of legislation, at the point of policy, then the implementation aspect of it would be seamless and easy. Because we've seen Kenya, we're always praised. We are told we have effective laws, we have efficient policies, but how come we never get it right at the end of the day when it comes to the implementation aspect? So for me, I think that the why for me came easily. It was impact. Then you have to be humble, because in government, you're coming into a system that has already been established. For those of you who've had the opportunity of interacting with government, and Otilia, you might also want to speak on this because we've been on various platforms with you. Protocol is observed whether you like it or not. And if you dare try break that protocol, you'll automatically feel the consequences. So humility will help you go a long way. You have to respect your seniors. You cannot be seen to be disrespectful to your seniors, as Davidson had said. So respect will take you a very long way, and humility will also take you further. Then the relationships that you keep, don't burn those bridges. Someone might come off as disrespectful. At the end of the day, don't take it personally. You're there to do your job. And if your goal is impact, don't take it personally. You need to move on as quickly as possible. And then the second question on data controllers and data processors. Yes, with this new framework, we are now stepping into shoes that we never previously anticipated. So if you're running your own practice, you might end up being a data controller. If you're in-house, if you're an in-house counsel, then automatically it means that your organization, if it's handling personal data, and the assumption it is handling personal data because they have engaged you as an employee, automatically ends up being a data controller. So the expectation is that now you have another aspect to add to your compliance checklist. I know compliance, people in the compliance departments have a lot of work to do, but now with the development in the digital space and in the ICT space, data protection has come into force, and now you also have to comply. And the reason why we're insisting on compliance is because you might end up being impacted not by the Kenyan law, but assuming the European Union comes from you because you've breached one of the provisions under the GDPR regulations, and the fines they're imposing on their end are quite significant compared with what we have under our jurisdiction. So yes, our role has changed, even in terms of what would be expected of you now is to advise the organizations that you work for, and if you're in practice as well, is to review the act and the regulations and to see how it's going to affect you. Most of us might end up being data controllers, and if you're not data controllers, then automatically you end up being a data processor. So it means there's more work we've added that has been added onto your to-do list, but it's life, these things happen. Progress. I think that's how we measure progress in terms of the responsibilities that are added onto your list at the end of the day. Yes.
Thank you. And I asked that question specifically so that we put on our think tanks as legal practitioners and figure that out in regards to the role that we play for our clients and the role we play even in the society in general. And because this is a developing conversation, a developing area of law, and of course there will be so many other professions as well that may also be part of this conversation. I think it's time that we start thinking about that. And I think for the Law Society of Kenya Nairobi branch, this is something that perhaps we can have more conversations around, because it's really something that will change our legal practice, and especially for the practitioners, the guys who run the law firm, specifically the solo practitioners, the guys in partnerships. It's going to be very interesting. So it's something that we must put on our thinking caps on. Then I'll ask another question. I have some interesting questions here already from Andrew. So please keep your questions coming. So his first question also sort of intertwines with one of the questions I wanted to ask that was on my list. Please share some of the mistakes that you've made or challenges that you faced and how you rose from these situations. And I think it's always an important question when we're having mentorship sessions, so that then people feel normal, people feel like they're not alone in whatever it is that they're going through. So I think it would be awesome for you to just share one example and say, oh my gosh, there's one time, I don't know, I spilled tea over my boss's laptop, and I hid it under the chair, something, and how you came back from it. I think when we're having conversations, mentorship, we always want to show how there's light at the end of the tunnel, regardless of the mistakes that we make. So I will start with you, Otilia, and then move to Dr. Mwaisaka, and then Rahab.
It's not easy thinking of one, because obviously there hasn't been one after you've had a career of these many years. But maybe the most recent, I think, we were working on something that's high stakes. We had an executive, as actually the president and vice chair of our board, coming into country in Kenya. He had some meetings that he wanted set up. Rahab was talking about protocol. There's all the things that, surrounding trying to cure something of the sort. But in addition, there's all the internal politics around, everyone has their motivations of things that they're trying to showcase or highlight, and just trying to bring that all together and make sure that you're getting the right things and the right people in front of someone like that when they're coming into country is something that's important. And I'm not a government affairs person, but I was moonlighting as the government affairs person as they were in the process of hiring. And so in this stretch capacity, I think just some things is just not knowing, right? As in, one of the things that I learned, I guess the opportunity for me was around over communicating when you are trying to bring together stakeholders, both external and internal, towards a common target, because it created all sorts of interesting friction. And there was a lot of back and forth in trying to pull together the briefs for these engagements in ways that if I had been more intentional around communicating with everyone and bringing everyone to the table and having a united vision around what we were trying to achieve, I think we would have done better. Maybe that's one of the most recent lessons I've had, where it actually, I don't know if it was, I did something wrong, I just didn't even know. I didn't even know any better. But I would say if you're working with multiple stakeholders, over communicate. I can never stress it enough. Get everyone together on the table and try and have a common vision on what you're trying to achieve, or things can really get out of hand very quickly.
Awesome. Dr. Mwaisaka?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Yeah, I think for me, what I've continued to learn is being able to slow down. At times I can do things in a rush and maybe not think about it, or just be out there. You want things quick fix, huh? Yeah, you realize speed is an enemy of very many things in life, yeah, that matter. So in terms of speed, it can be very addictive if something you're not careful about. It can be able to undermine quality, yeah, can be able to undermine depth of what you're doing, yeah, in terms of yourself being compassionate, yeah, in terms of you being more creative, in what you're doing, and appreciating others, and really killing relationships. Huh? So I think what is most important, and something that through my career journey I've really strived to work on, is to ensure that I slow down. Yeah. For our younger colleagues, as they start out of campus, maybe you might want a quick fix. You want everything to fly. Yeah. And unfortunately, life is not that way. Things have to take time. Yeah. And you can always be excellent in anything you want, but it'll take time, and nothing valuable comes easy. Yeah. It'll have discomfort with it. It will always have a part of you not feeling that you're in your comfort zone. Yeah. But constantly, and making that behavior very intentional, and making it automatic with time, you'll ensure that things will be done. So maybe just to ask a question, how often do you forget brushing your teeth? Or do you ever even think about it? But that's something that you've done, maybe from age 4, yeah, till now. Yeah, so always let's strive as colleagues out there to ensure that if you want to excel in anything, yeah, it's a matter of time. You will get there. It's just about the persistence, and to ensure that constantly you continue doing what you're doing with persistence. Another item that maybe I might bring on is, we are in this world to ensure that we bring value, not just consuming, yeah, but always Davidson asking himself, what value am I bringing to the world? Huh? Yeah, we'll spend every day looking at, or rather consuming resources, consuming knowledge from others, etc. Yeah, but how will I, as Davidson, and maybe an aspect that I've continued to challenge myself, be of more value? I was mentored, and with God's grace, I'm where I am. How can I return that back? I'll be happy if I can hold 1 or 2, 3 colleagues who are younger than me, mentor them, and see them grow. I think I will have added more value to the world than me just taking out of it. Maybe the environment, etc. How do we challenge ourselves as colleagues out there? Global warming is real. Yeah. How can we maybe come together as colleagues, have a tree planting day session? We go there, so that out there, so that we can also add something back to Mother Earth, and more so our society, much more than we consume. And I think that's the beauty of life. If we can approach life in that way, ultimately at the end of the day, we'll end up being more fulfilled. I think that there's nothing as good as giving back, and actually seeing that as a result of your deliberate effort to give back to society, to give back to community, to give back to individuals, to hold a colleague's hand and see that colleague thrive. I think there's that excitement that comes with it. Yeah, and you'll always feel that satisfaction that, yes, indeed, as Davidson, as Liz, as Otilia, as Rahab, as each one of us, we've been able to be of value to this world. So maybe those will be my thoughts to the question. Thanks.
Thank you. Over to you, Rahab.
So in terms of mistake, I think we all make mistakes on a daily basis. For me, I think the takeaway is move on from it. When though you make a mistake, it should not be your defining moment. You need to quickly pick the lesson and move on. I'll give you I'll share an example of a mistake I did. I think that was quite significant. It was during the public participation process of the regulations, and we were preparing the notices that would go out to to the members of the general public so that we can be able to receive any comments that they had on the draft documents that we developed. I put in the email address. Unfortunately, I didn't share that the notice with someone to proofread it. So what went to the Gazette printers and the press houses had inaccurate information. So you can imagine you need to send this information 3 days beforehand so that they can do the whole design process. And then once they send the design process, they send it to, or they seek the approvals on their end so that the same can be published in the newspaper. So you can imagine you share the document, you didn't request someone to review it, because traditionally what you'd have is you'd give someone to review the same document and just okay it. So when we finally sent the final draft that's going to be printed, and chances that you're going to be receiving that draft a few moments before it goes for print, we actually noticed that there's an error. So you see, the beauty is the document that was sent to a number of us, and someone was able to actually pick out that error. But you can imagine if the notice had gone with the wrong email address, the implication that that would have had. So consult. I think it serves, as Davidson has said, speed sometimes might not work in your best interest. Learn to slow down. I think there's a benefit to that, and also appreciate that some of these things take time. So if you make a mistake, pick your lesson from it and move on. I think we all make mistakes on a daily basis. So don't hold yourself too much at fault for making a mistake. It's at the end of the day, it's human nature.
Indeed. I think that's just the perfect way to even answer it. I think sometimes we get caught up with the mistakes that we make and we think, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. So now I think I'll go into plenary. I have 2 questions already. I invite you, if you have any questions, please ask them now, because once I ask the second question and there's no other question, then I'll wrap it up with the panelists sharing their, what should I say, their exit notes, for lack of a better word, and then hand over back the program. So we have a question here specifically for Otilia that comes from Andrew. He asks, the ambit of in-house counsel is showing your value to your employer, come client. How has specifically Otilia been able to achieve this, especially in the spaces she was new and green in? And as you answer that, just answer how that move from construction to tech, and how you are able to sort of transition.
Okay. So maybe one of the lessons that I learned about how do you get to a place where you can bring value, and I think Dr. Davidson also alluded to this in his sharing earlier. When you get to a place, just try to understand how things work. So before you can add value, you have to understand, what are people trying to do? What are they trying to achieve? How do their things work? What are some of their pain points? What are the challenges they're facing? And that takes some time. So to be fair, you can't arrive and then immediately on day one, yes, there'll be little things that you can add value to, your normal day-to-day stuff that you've been doing as a lawyer, those things you'll always be able to do. But for you to be really able to differentiate the value you can bring, particularly in-house, is if you take the time to understand the business itself, and what they're trying to achieve and where their challenges are, because then you can see where you can bring real value. And then when I think of the transition from construction to technology, I think I already shared a little bit some of the learning steps that I took. Shadowing was an important thing for me. Just walking in negotiations and deals that a commercial lawyer was, a senior commercial lawyer at the time was working on, just to get a sense of what does this work look like. And even until today, as I was sharing that I'm going to start picking up support for the South Africa business as well, what I've been doing the past couple of weeks is sitting in on their deals. And I'm a lawyer who's been negotiating transactions since 2008, right? But I still have the ability to sit and say, okay, show me how you do things here. So I've spent the last couple of weeks just shadowing, getting a sense of what the clients are like, getting a sense of what, just the market dynamics are and what might be different from what I'm used to. And so I think taking the time to learn is probably one of the big lessons that I would say is important when you're trying to transition and figure out how you can bring value. And I think the other thing is, I would say maybe the last thing, don't discount that you have transferable skills, right? There's this thing where there's an expectation that someone should be a technology expert when they enter the technology space. The truth is no one is. That's the honest truth. None of us studied technology at law school. Many of us who are lawyers within the technology space have had to learn it. So everyone is trying to understand this new space. And so, and because of that, it's very adaptable. So, and don't be, you'll be surprised at what you know that's transferable and that is still of value even as you transition to a space like this. So maybe those are the two things I would say.
Thank you. Then the other question we've been asked, I think I'll ask Dr. Mwaisaka and Rahab to answer. And please try and be succinct with your responses so that we can get to the parting shots. And Nyota asks, is it advisable to stick to one employer when starting your career or to move across different employers in terms of positioning yourself for the job market?
Okay, we have Rahab go first, then I can jump in. Thanks.
I'll answer this with a situation I've seen going around. So I think with the advent of the Data Protection Act and with the registration coming along, I've seen institutions advertising for positions of data protection officers. The challenge is this is a new position, not only in Kenya, but also globally, because it's a new requirement with all privacy frameworks that are coming up on board. The challenge is some of these advertisements are asking for, I don't know, 5 years experience, but the law has only been in place for 3 years now. So you see, it becomes a bit hard to maybe even understand where those requirements are coming from. So I'd say if the opportunity presents itself, what's the harm? If you can only grow to a certain extent in a specific organization. So if the opportunity for growth, there's no opportunity for growth upwards, I don't think there's any harm for allowing yourself to grow outwards. And the outward growth might even be right into another new position that comes along. So if the opportunity presents itself, I think what it does, it will allow you the chance to become a diverse human being. So if maybe in the litigation space, you're curious to trying out what is in the ICT space, what's the harm? I think curiosity will help you grow and diversify the skill set that you'll be able to offer at the end of the day.
Yeah, thanks, Rahab. Yeah, the way I look at it is, in life, we should be able to let go of certainty. Yeah? And I think the opposite is uncertainty. It's about being open, about being curious, and being able to embrace paradox as it unfolds, rather than being in a position whereby we are choosing sides. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the Bible says time and chance comes to them all. Yeah, the weak, the strong, the bright, everyone has an opportunity. Time will always come, a chance will always come. So if we let go of certainty, and when those opportunities present themselves, I don't see a problem. Why you should not take it up? I was in Equatorial Commercial Bank 1 year, 2 months. I was in Britain 1 year, 3 months. I was at Oraro for exactly 3 years. Okay, I've been with the bank for a longer period, but if an opportunity arises, why not? I think had I said I'll just stick in one field or one area, and once, or rather when those opportunities arose, I would have ignored them. Maybe I will not have had a feel of the insurance sector. I will not have a feel of asset management. I will not have a feel of property management, the experience and the exposure I had in Britain. I will not have an experience or exposure of going to virgin markets and setting up a business and bringing it from scratch. Had I ignored maybe the opportunity at Oraro, I'll not have an opportunity to actually do conveyancing and understand what happened. Yeah, we were just right out next to the lands office, and I was a regular customer. When they open the doors at 9, you're there chasing for your client's document. Yeah. So now me sitting on the other side, I will really understand what are my empaneled law firms going through when I'm really chasing them. I really want this security. I have that experience of what it happens, or rather what happens to go to the lands office, push, get those documents, etc. So really, what I can say, let go certainty, embrace paradox as it unfolds, be easy, enjoy life, and see where life will take you and your career will take you. Yeah, and at the end of the day, be ready to take maybe risks, but calculated risks. You might never know. It will give you a different perspective that you might never have experienced. Thanks.
And I think as you answered that question, I just remembered something that you said was important, that you have to know yourself. I think as you're trying to explore and grow as a legal practitioner, knowing yourself also helps you identify what's right for you and what isn't. So I think I'll read this remark as a last thing. So I think now we can move to our parting shots. And for me, the parting shot, I think, would be great to highlight advice that you would give your younger self, or a piece of advice that you could give a young lawyer, perhaps even highlight some of the mistakes that we may be making unconsciously and how we can come out of that. And just basically to encourage our participants and our listeners today. And I will start with Rahab, and then move to Otilia, and then Dr. Mwaisaka.
So parting shots, if I was talking to myself straight out of university, I tell myself be patient. Good things take time. Don't castigate yourself too much if you make a mistake. Learn to let go, learn from these mistakes, and learn to let go. And lastly, enjoy the journey, because don't focus too much on the destination, because once you get there, it really doesn't make any sense if you didn't enjoy the journey. So enjoy the journey.
I love that, the enjoy the journey. For my younger self, and maybe for other younger people, I would say the world is your oyster. The legal practice is something that tends to be very jurisdiction focused, just by the nature of how we're licensed and registered, right? But really, to be fair, with the direction that the world is going, our interconnectedness, the opportunities out there, I really think that there's an opportunity for us to think more global as a profession. And so I would say to my younger self, the world is your oyster. And that's what I would say as well to younger people. Just opportunities abound.
Thanks. For me, I think 3 parting shots. One, for my younger colleagues, speed. Yeah, as I said, speed destroys lots of things. I think let's always strive to be patient. It's a matter of time. I think the abundance of our profession, it gives us myriad of opportunities. Just be an advocate of integrity, do the right thing, consistency, and persistence. It's a matter of time. You will get where you want to get. Yeah, you will get the recognition that you want, etc. Second, I think as individuals or as human beings, we carry an evolutionary disposition to always dwell on what's wrong in our lives. Yeah, it happened. You'll have that mindset, things are not working out, things are not doing as I thought you should do. It happens to everyone. No one has a perfect life. Each one of us have challenges, but it all boils down to your mindset and the ability to notice the good. Yeah. Deliberately taking each day as we leave, to ensure that we notice what's going right and feeling grateful. You'll be surprised that you probably have a lot. You really have a lot. And it's life. There will always be somebody better than you. There will always be somebody lower than you, as you described lower being. So at the end of the day, always notice the good. Yeah. Further to that, I think one other last item that I think is very important, the feeling of having enough is magical. Yeah. At times you might think, and it really depends on how much you've got, but more is rarely better. Yeah. And at the end of the day, at times, too much of everything eventually at times becomes toxic. So always, as colleagues in the profession, etc., be grateful. Yeah. Whatever you have, be it your talents, be it your family, be it your friends, be it good health, etc., always be grateful. You might think that maybe you don't have enough, but having more at times is rarely better. But being confident of yourself, being thankful to God for his blessing. And at the end of the day, really, to all of us, we are all unique. We are all unique. Davidson is Davidson. Yeah. Liz is Liz, Otilia is Otilia, Rahab is Rahab. We all have our path. We all have our different paths that are destined. I believe in destiny. I believe in what God has given to all of us. Yeah. So believe in yourself. Yeah. You're not a copy of anyone. Yeah. Photocopy of anyone. Don't envy anyone. It's their portion. You will have yours. Yeah. Never step on anyone thinking that you'll step on that person and you will get what they have. It's their portion. It is theirs. Be satisfied in your skin. Be satisfied in yourself, and enjoy life. I think in life we are here to enjoy, and in our little ways, in our little experiences, etc. Be happy. I think that's the beauty of us being in this world. Enjoy your life despite the challenges, despite the experiences. It's a matter of time. They will all pass by, and we will live our lives fully. I think that will be the parting shot to our younger colleagues and basically to our colleagues in the forum. Thanks.
I really enjoyed these nuggets of wisdom. And as we come to a conclusion in terms of the panelist conversation, I think there was something also that was said that I think is really important as young lawyers, and as lawyers, we always have a conversation about and be cognizant of, and it's humility. I think we always joke how we're in the business of egos. And it's true, being a lecturer, I see that in my students, and sometimes I have to, tell them, it's good we're watching Suits and everything, it's entertainment, but, Harvey Spectra cannot be your spirit animal if you want to survive in this legal profession. So humility, I think, was something that stood out for me, and it's something that we never have it said on the same wavelength as being a lawyer or being an advocate and doing the right thing. I think that's amazing emphasis. I want to say thank you so much to the panelists for sharing your stories, your nuggets, and just for making time. Mentorship is literally a service to the people, and we're very thankful for that. For those who have been asking about the recording, you will have access to the recording. The Secretariat, the NLA Secretariat and the Nairobi branch will ensure that you get access to it. We've been streaming live on Facebook, and a big shout out to those who have been joining us on Facebook. Thank you for joining. I hope you learned something. At this juncture, I have the pleasure of inviting the chair of the Nairobi Legal Awards, Mr. Charles Kanjama. He has some words for us. So thank you so much, NLA and the branch, for having us and for this session. Over to you, Bwana Kanjama.
Thanks, Liz. You've done a really great job moderating this session. I didn't know that you're this good in moderating. And also thanks to the panelists. I think we've received a lot of nuggets of wisdom from all of you. Thank you to the participants who've been attending. We believe most of you are in-house lawyers, and also those who've attended who may not be in-house lawyers but wanted to just learn about in-house legal practice. For our main, of course, organizers from LSK Nairobi branch, who are the organizers or the managers of this project. They're the sponsors of the Nairobi Legal Awards project. And from those in the Secretariat of Nairobi branch, thank you very much. And for the team that organized this at NLA, including the technical committee and the trustees, thank you very much. I think the chair of the branch, Helen Namisi, is present. I think also the vice chair, Elizabeth Wanjiru Ndungu. I don't know whether to still call her Liz Shiro. She's called Liz like yourself, Liz Lenjo, and to the rest of the team of Nairobi branch, their in-house representative, Damari Etemesi. Thank you all for participating in this event. My job as the chair of the Nairobi Legal Awards Trust, which is a project of Nairobi branch, is to basically tell you something about the process of the Nairobi Legal Awards. We are going to be having the 5th edition this year, 2022, of the Nairobi Legal Awards. Last year, the last Friday in November, we had a fantastic gala dinner. It was at Movenpick Hotel. We had more than 400 lawyers in attendance. And among the lawyers in attendance, we had people who had been nominated and shortlisted in various categories. And we awarded a second runner-up, first runner-up, and awardees in a number of individual and corporate categories. So the job of the trust is to ensure that there is quality control and that the process of the awards is done scientifically and in a structured way. The Nairobi Legal Awards Trust is normally assisted by a number of committees. First is the jury, which is chaired by Buta Siganga, and it has representatives from different sectors of legal practice, including in-house legal practice. And then we also have the technical committee that handles the logistics of our events, including even today's event. And we have the secretariat that handles now the support for all these committees. So in the year 2022, we decided that the award cycle will have 2 phases. I forgot to mention we have the awards, the College of Assessors. So the assessors are the people who verify the information we receive from the nominees. And in 2022, we have 2 phases in the award cycle. We find that the largest interest in the awards is in 2 individual categories. That is Lawyer of the Year and Young Lawyer of the Year. So the work that we get in reviewing the entrants in these categories tends to be a lot. And we want to encourage much broader participation. So in 2022, we are having the first phase in which we'll be doing nominations and then assessments for these 2 individual categories, Lawyer of the Year and Young Lawyer of the Year. And then in phase 2, we will cover the remaining individual categories as well as the corporate categories. And the individual categories include in-house Lawyer of the Year, public sector lawyer. So we've divided in-house into 2, for private sector and for public sector. And then we also have a ADR practitioner of the year. We have law teacher of the year. And those are the main individual categories. And then we have the corporate categories, which include in-house legal department of the year, both for public sector, for private sector. We have civil society lawyer of the year and civil society organization in the governance and justice sector of the year. And we have a few other categories. So you can see on the screen shared there, the 2 principal categories we are launching We have already launched them 2 weeks ago, and the process of nominations is going on this year. We've decided to include subcategories because the lawyer of the year can either be a commercial practitioner, a litigation practitioner, can be involved in managerial role as a partner or sole proprietor, or we've added in-house because you can be very good in in-house practice and then you are shortlisted and you become the lawyer of the year. And for the young lawyer category, we've added a DR practitioner. So those are the categories for which shortlisting is happening. Our secretariat is sharing with each of you who are attending this event via email the link, and I think the link will also be shared on the chat so that you can go to the link and nominate. It's a Google form that allows you to nominate a lawyer of your choice. If you think you're the one who is deserving to be the young lawyer or the lawyer of the year, you can nominate yourself so long as you are a lawyer yourself and you are a Nairobi advocate. Nairobi branch covers Nairobi and Kiambu counties. You can also nominate someone else. So those who are nominated will eventually receive a tool, which is basically a questionnaire that asks them to share with us certain information about their practice of law, including referees. And then this information that they share with us will be subjected to an objective assessment process. The referees will also be contacted to give independent verification. The data will be collated, and eventually, after the assessors have done their work, presented to an independent jury, which then decides on the final ranking of the candidates who have been nominated. And really, a recognition by your peers is the highest form of recognition you can get. And once you are recognized, you can use the banner of the Nairobi Legal Awards for the next 12 months. You become an ambassador of the awards process. All the people taking part in the process are bound by the strictest confidentiality so that the information that you disclose will not be used for any other purpose apart from for the purpose of the award. So it is my job to encourage each of us present to participate in this process by nominating someone that you think can be a lawyer of the year or young lawyer of the year. The young lawyer category is for lawyers of between 0 and less than 5 years. So more than 0, but less than 5 years in practice. And normally they should also be young in terms of age, which means 35 and below. Anyone qualifies for lawyer of the year category as well. You can nominate several people if you want, but you can only nominate one for every time you fill the link. And then the other thing that I should also add is that we also have an arrangement where if you do not want to participate as a nominee, as somebody who's going to be assessed, you can still participate yourself or your organization by sponsoring or supporting the award cycle through partnering, giving us some financial support. We are also in the process of accepting those who would like to serve as assessors, and you just write to Nairobi Legal Awards. I don't know what is the email. I hope it's on the form, or Faith can type it into the chat in case you'd like to serve as an assessor. And the assessors undergo training so that they can do an objective job of assessment. Other than that, thank you very much. We launched the award cycle during the women's soiree that happened 2 weeks ago. And for this first cycle, the awards nominations are open for another, I think, 8 days. So please don't delay in nominating someone of your choice. Thank you very much. I don't know who I'm meant to hand over now to wind up.
I think at this point, Faith will take over at the Secretariat.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kanjama, for your remarks. This is the end of our session. It marks the end of our session. We thank you so much for coming, and to give the last remarks from the branch, please welcome Liz Shiro, as she has confirmed from the chat, to give her final remarks. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Phiri. For me, it's to give my vote of thanks. I want to first of all thank the over 90 advocates who have logged into the session since we started at 2:30. I want to thank the organizers of this webinar, that is the Nairobi Legal Awards and the LSK Nairobi branch. I want to thank Liz Lenjo for moderating us so well from the moment we started up until now. I want to pass a special thank you to our speakers. Dr. Davidson Mwaisaka, my take home is we should slow down, let go of certainty, and that time and chance comes to them all. I want to thank Rahab Juma. You said to us that this too shall pass, if at all we are going through a difficult time. You have also told us to pick our lessons from the mistakes and move on, and that we should always recommend ourselves. Asante sana. I want to also thank Otilia. Otilia, you have reminded us that if there's an opportunity, we should always put our hands up. You have also said that, you have also told us that relatives have a hand in our destiny, in how you even started your legal career. We want to thank you for taking your time and joining us, and even agreeing to facilitate this particular webinar. So I also want to pass a special thank you to the Secretariat and all the members of the branch, including council members, who have helped in making this webinar a success. Asanteni sana. I believe this will mark the end of our webinar. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.